Hello everyone and welcome to today's live stream where as of March 26th, 2024, Blender 4.1 has been released. I'm very happy about this release because it fixes quite a few bugs and includes some quality of life features which will be very handy going forward. And as I said, it fixes quite a few bugs that were very annoying in previous versions of Blender, especially when it comes to geometry nodes. So what's new? Well, one grand quality of life feature is this new lock thing to lock the camera to view. Just a nice handy little button so that you don't have to click the N key and then go over here and then click this button where the text is clipped with that. So now you don't need to look at that ever again, which I'm very happy about. This lock icon only shows when you're in the camera, of course, replacing the orthographic view. So now you can just do that, and it's very convenient. It's a weird thing to note first, but that's one of the things I'm the happiest about in this update. But there have been a lot of other updates. Another one that I'm very happy about is with simulation nodes. So, with the simulation zone in Blender 4.0, a new bug was introduced where if you pressed Ctrl Z, the cache would be completely wiped, to the point where you would have to restart your blend file in order for it to restart. This was a big hang-up in Blender 4.0 when making things that other people needed to use. I got a few emails about, hey, why is this not working? And I was like, oh, did you ever press Ctrl Z? And they were like, oh yeah, and I was like, yeah, that's a Blender bug in 4.0. So for Blender 4.0, I really could not release a ton of projects, at least simulation node projects, due to said bug. But that's been fixed. And also with the simulation zone, materials now work. So if we were to, let's bring the monkey head over here and give it a unique material. Let's put it into the blue range. Now if we use a simulation zone, we'll see that the materials actually stay on it, which I'm so happy about. Simulation zone, let's go and put this here and here. I have projects that were from 2022, December 2022, which used, and maybe we'll take a look at them, that used materials just because, you know, that's how you would assume it worked. But up until over a year later, actually, over a year later, we can finally bring them back and bring them into the spotlight. Or they will function as intended. But yes, that's why I'm happy about 4.0. Basically, a lot of fixes that were very needed have been implemented. And now time for the new stuff. So what is new? Well, on the geometry node side, we have the bake node, which means that, oh, you can just freeze the calculations at a certain point in your graph, and then you can just keep them there, do edits after the fact, and it won't have to recalculate. So to showcase this in a more applicable scenario, let's go over to our lightning bolts over to here. And actually, would that be good? Let's use the sparks in. This will be good, and I'll hide the other one. So here we have the sparks falling down, but what if you wanted to freeze the simulation so that you could, say, work on the instancing without having to worry about everything beforehand? And seeing, you know, this isn't the best example, but you probably can see where I'm going with this. So here, if we were to bake this in a still pattern, we can see that this no longer moves, so you can do edits after the fact. But it doesn't have to be that way necessarily. We can go and bake it to the point where, with the animation button, sorry about that, so that right now, everything's baked up until this point. So if you do any edits outside the simulation zone, those will bake as well, which is very convenient. Let me refresh the chat because it was broken. Okay. There's the chat. Hello everyone, and welcome. If you have any questions about 4.1, please feel free to put them in the chat and I'll try to answer them. This was a pretty impromptu stream, so I apologize for that. But I just wanted to do a little live stream announcing it, because with the previous ones, I don't think I did one for 4.0. And the 3.6 one, well, that's when I discovered quite a few of the bugs with the simulation zone, which was very funny in hindsight. I would recommend going back and watching that one, because it was very funny. I was like, okay, we're going to do this, and then roadblock by a bug, roadblock by another bug, and so on. But Now those should be fixed 9 months later, which even though it's been a long time, it's good that it's been fixed. I'm very happy about that. Let's see, what else? Let me get the changelog up here. A few other things that I'm happy about. These subpanels are now a part of the modifier stack. So when subpanels were first introduced, they were only available in the as in node groups, so you wouldn't be able to see them in the actual part that the end user would be able to see. So now if we put a ton of sockets in here, we can now see that we have panels, which is very good and will make products much more convenient going forward. I should have planned a bit more in advance. Again, apologies with more examples, but again, just wanted to showcase this. But yes, now we can actually organize everything and it will be nice. As far as I know, let me check this one more time. There aren't nested subpanels yet, unfortunately, but I think that is planned. So maybe in 4.2. We will see. Let's see. Oh, right. We have the menu switch. So, let's see. Menu switch. So with this, you can have multiple inputs. Like this, we could just add in more and more inputs. Up to like 500, I think. I think that's what I tested before. Maybe you can go beyond that. But you can just switch between the different inputs like this, which this is useful because it's more of a UI thing with geometry node groups, which is something that we've been really needing in the past. So now you can just select whatever you want and it will switch to that item in the list. Let's see, I'll go, one second everyone, I'll go and open up a new file where we can actually test this stuff out without breaking old projects of mine. So here we go. Let's see, let's go over to, whoops, let's get the chat back up. Okay, let's go into the geometry nodes section, new, and let's put in that menu switch. So menu switch. And also this has a twin node called the index switch, which basically does the same thing, but you can use an index input, and this is compatible with field inputs, while the menu switch is pretty much limited to... Oh, actually, no, that also has a field input. How does that work? Huh. Never mind. Actually, I need to test that. How would an enum field work? I don't actually think that's possible. Yeah, no, that's a singular value. So, technically it can do a field input, but I think practically it doesn't make a difference. So these two have different functionalities, which will be useful going forward. So here, let's switch this back to the geometry inputs, and then put that out there. So if we have a cube, we can have that as option A, and an icosphere as option B. And then we can switch between them extremely easily, which I'm very, very happy about. Again, with the index switch, let's switch that to geometry, and then you could just do that, which is extremely convenient. Because before, you know, the switch node, let's put a cylinder in there. Oops. Cylinder, there we go. Having multiple inputs is extremely useful. There, do, and so on. And also, you can rename... Oh, they forgot to add the extension socket in there. They were talking about that a while ago, but they kind of forgot about that. Or they chose not to. Which in this case, if you want to add another socket, you just go into here, add a new one, and then you name it. A unique name, and then you can just go in and switch between all of them, which will be extremely useful going forward. There are plans in order to have the enums go to more sockets, like, again, these sockets. These are also enums, but we cannot connect them to there just yet. They are planning on it, because there are a lot of nodes, the bake node included, where the user would have to, you know, be able to access that outside of the node group, which will be very good once we get it. So, let's see what else. I want to make sure I'm not missing anything. Let me check the changelog one more time. Oh, the Musgrave texture has been removed and merged into the noise texture. So noise, has more modes to it, to where it's kind of like the Musgrave texture, but a little bit different. There's documentation on how to make it exactly the same, and there's also versioning where I assume it'll just switch over automatically. So, yes. And that brings up a funny thing. In the shader nodes, you got an update, finally, where you get -1 node. It's just merged into the noise texture. But, it's an update nonetheless. So, other than that, I know I'm missing something, so let me search the changelog one more time. Oh, split to instances, yes. So split to instances. Let's go and join all these geometries together. Join. So if you have multiple geometries together, mesh islands, I assume. Oh no, it doesn't have to be mesh islands, but it is recommended that you put the mesh island index into here. We'll split the objects into instances. So if we use a set position node after the fact and then make this a random value, we can now see that each instance is being offset, which is really cool. So I was asked a while back how you would make it so that the origin is centered even if the geometry is not. And at the moment, I do not have a good method for doing that, unfortunately. Now, I'm going to do just a quick test. I hope you don't mind. To see what can be done with that. Oops, let's... Yeah, there we go. So here, if you split to instances and all that, and then want to rotate the instances, we'll see that the rotation is not centered around where the object, where the mesh island origin is, or the median. So, one thought I had was to use the bounding box of the instance in order to do that. But unfortunately, getting instance bounding boxes isn't really... you just get 0, 0 out of there, which I think they may change, but... Because, as we can see here, we get the bounding boxes of the instances, but it doesn't put it on the instance domain. It just kind of freaks out a little bit, which is really unfortunate, and I hope it gets updated, because having that data would be extremely useful, especially with this new split to instances node. But yes. Can we plug an index into an index switch? Yes, you could. Basically, any field value should work. What happened to gizmos is on the roadmap. As far as I know, there hasn't been any development on that in the past, like, 3 to 4 months. They created it, and I haven't heard anything since then. I think they have bigger fish to fry when it comes to that, but it is kind of planned. Kind of. We'll see what happens. So what about Eevee Next? That's been delayed until Blender 4.2 or later. That has been delayed so many times. I would say don't hold your breath on that one, because I held my breath for Blender 4.0 and 4.1, and it got delayed again. But we'll see. Maybe this time. Are you going to the LA Blender, the LA BF conference? Blender Foundation conference. Unfortunately, no. I am quite busy at the moment, so unfortunately, I don't have time to go there, but it would be very interesting. Let's see. Quality of life updates. Yes, lots of quality of life. Good morning from India. Hello, good morning. The lightning effect looks so good. Yes. I think I may release that at some point, now that Blender 4.1 has been released. I have many projects that I was making in Blender 4.1 because it was the, version where simulation nodes actually worked as intended. So we'll see what gets released. But I will say, I may need to update this because the last time I worked on it was like in the beta or alpha. But my particle system, which actually I will open right now, is up on Gumroad for free. Let me just open it really quickly. Geometry nodes. Particle simulation system. Okay. So my particle simulation system. This is powered off of Blender 4.1, pretty much entirely. Well, technically, most of it could be converted into 3.6, but it would be a pain to do so. And Blender 4.1, well, makes it so that it doesn't break and has some cool quality of life things, like billboard particles that you don't need to manually set the active camera node anymore. Sorry, I just lost the chat for a quick second. But here, you can, well, thanks to, geometry nodes doing its thing, I was able to create a lot of subnodes in order to create a particle system that's very varied. Again, it's out for free on Gumroad. If you pick it up and use it in your projects, please let me know. If you have feedback, please let me know. Okay. Here we can see, oh, wow. What are these nice billboard particles and trails? Well, these are using the new active camera node, which came in Blender 4.1. So let me go over to, let's see, which particle system runs on that. So here we have a node that I made called align instances to camera, where we find the location of the active camera, and then we align Euler to vector and all that good stuff, and then send it through. So in that way, and this just resets the position so that this one can set it. A little bit of a workaround, but it's what you have to do. And then you can rotate instances after. But with that, you can align instances to face the camera. So you can make a ton of cool particle effects, and it's very convenient. The trails also use something along those lines, but, oh wait, is that 4.0 or 4.1? I forget. With the trails, there is an option to set a custom curve normal, and I believe that came in Blender 4.0, but I don't recommend using Blender 4.0 with simulation nodes because it breaks. It's made out of glass. If you press Ctrl Z once, it is gone. But now, it should be stable. Oh, and we have 34 people here. Hello. Apologies that this is a late stream, but I just had some time and I want to go over this. So let's see if I can showcase any new changes in this. Oh no, the set curve normal node was introduced in Blender 4.1. So you can just make the curve normal go anywhere, including facing the camera, so that you can have nice trails that actually face the camera, and you don't need to do anything with it. It's all automatic, which is the goal of geometry nodes. Let's go and use this handy dandy lock icon to lock the camera to view to showcase what happens. We're just going to move this around, and it looks like, oh wow, it's always facing the camera, and it always looks incredible. Incredibly convenient. It's been a long time coming. Alright, and out of muscle memory, I went to go and click this checkbox, but we don't need to do that anymore. It just works. The famous words of Todd Howard. Here's another example where all of these smoke particles are rising from the ground and they're facing the camera. But when you're actually looking from the camera, it looks really good. Again, taking a few pages out of game engines and just being like, oh, billboard particles, fun. Okay. What else? Set curve normal node. Oh, the viewer node. The viewer node now shows attributes as, let's see if I can get this up. Let's get a named attribute as text. Now, with instances, I think this may be a little bit funky, but let's try that. So, I have an age value that's in this particle system that I made. But the problem is it goes above 1. So if you're using the viewer node, you can't see anything because it all is way, way, way too bright. But if we click the attribute text thing right here, we can see the actual numbers and what parts are at what age. Let me turn off the color so that we can see it a little bit better. But here we can see, oh, this smoke particle over here is 45 frames old, which tracks. The one, or, yeah, that makes sense. And the ones closer to the bottom are like 1 to 2 to 5 frames old, which is really, really cool. Okay, just checking the last little bit from the things. I hope the sound's good. I did have to reset my sound settings a little while back, and I haven't really updated them too much. So if the noise is a little bit scuffed, sorry about that. I will fix it in the future if it's necessary. let's see, there's a few performance improvements with like the shortest edge paths node, extrude mesh, face group boundaries, and edges to face groups, which will be appreciated. Yeah, the shortest edge paths node being 60% faster, that will be very good for some nodes setups that I have, like the jacket folding one and the well, basically any shortest path setup that I have. Okay. Just checking everything else. That seems to be everything. The fill curve node also has a group ID inputs, which, yeah, that makes sense. That makes complete and total sense. That basically means if you put like mesh island, or if you have an ID per spline, you can put that into there and it should work per index. Sort elements node. Okay, this is one that I believe I've gone over before in the past live streams, but this will be a good one to go over again. So let's go and get the index node and view that. So here we can see that the indices of this mesh just are kind of not super random, but they're not ordered in the way that maybe you want. So we can use the sort elements node, sort elements, to sort the indices by a certain value. So what if we wanted the indices of the lower parts to be like 1, 2, 3, and the ones at the higher parts to be higher, like 300 and something like that. So let's go and use the position input, separate the Z, and we should see that the ones at the bottom should have a very low index, and they're now sorted from the bottom up. And we can also make it so that it sorts from left to right, all that good stuff. Again, over here, index 0, the one that's the most negative X, and the ones over here will be the most positive X. This one was a operator, like a edit mode operator, but now it's in geometry node, so you can have a non-destructive way of reordering indices, which is extremely useful for a lot of projects that I have in the future. Okay, just checking the chat. Okay. Smoke works at every angle. Oh, auto smooth. This is a big one. So auto smooth has been completely wiped from Blender, which I am extremely happy about, because it was very weird and very funky for getting like, I don't know, very deliberate results, like results you can pinpoint. But now, the shading of the object is now completely determined by the edge crease. Or wait, check real quick. So if you shade smooth, we can see that that happens. And then we can mark some of these creases as sharp. Mark sharp. Here we go. We should see that now those are sharp, as you would expect. And before auto smooth would just be a little bit weird with all that if it wasn't enabled. So now that is removed. Whoops, that was completely unintentional. Mark sharp. There we go. So now you have that. Let me throw in a subdivision surface modifier so that we can see a little bit better. Let's see. There we go. Okay. Wait, what? Did we just find a bug? Immediately. 1 second, everyone. Huh. Oh, no, that's a GPU subdivision thing. But still looks like a bug. Interesting. So if that's not there, and then we apply it, then it is technically there. Not when it's like that. Interesting. Need to make a bug report about that. But anyway, that is actually very odd. Huh. Interesting. Well, anyway. If you want to get the old auto smooth functionality, you can use the smooth by angle geometry node. And it comes pre-built in Blender, where you just go and put it in, and it should work exactly like the old node. And it should be a lot, or the old mode, my bad. It should be a ton faster than the old version, just because the normal calculation has been updated. So now it's a lot more predictable than the old auto smooth where it's like, oh, let's go and apply these, and then I'm going to deform the object, and then wait, why is the shading changing? Now, you don't need to worry about that at all. It's now just very deliberate, and you can see which edges are sharp. So, a big improvement. A lot of people are very happy about that, and it's a good change. I like it. I'm sad about auto smooth. I still can't figure out subsurface scattering ever since they changed it. Subsurface scattering, quick side tangent, it should be pretty similar, because right now, subsurface scattering, you just need to change the weight to 1, and then you can change the scale in order to change the scale. This is like the enabler, which I can see that being a little bit confusing, but apparently it's a bit more standardized, I would assume. And then there are multiple modes for that, which if you're using cycles, it should be good. And also, it feels like subsurface scattering has been updated, but I'm not sure. That's just the vibe that I've gotten, which would be cool. Actually, there was nothing in the change. There's nothing really in the changelog for Eevee except for a few renames of different objects, like the light probes, which is sphere, plane, volume. That's the only change for Eevee in 4.1, because, again, Eevee Next got delayed. Again. It's been a long time. But, yeah. Let's see. Would you be fine with geometry nodes development stopping in favor of fixing and optimizing some of the old nodes? The optimization is already happening, as we saw with 4.1. Fixing the old nodes, I would be good with that, because there are many nodes, quite a few nodes, that need updates. Or, like the curve to mesh node, curve to mesh, it was planned to add in a UV map output, which people really needed because the workarounds were just not good and still are very, very bad. But unfortunately, that got abandoned. So that's one where it desperately needs an update. And also, this might be more of a feature request than a fix, but the distribute points on faces node, people really want a version that is consistent with the topology. So if the topology scales up or down, it'll have the same point count no matter what. And these are some of the oldest nodes in GeoNodes. They could use a bit of love. And then there's, you know, just other things. If I had a wish list for Blender 4.1, it would be a view layer attribute node. And I've mentioned this quite a lot in the past. But just so that we can get basically any data that the shader, well, there's a view layer attribute node in the shader editor, which the Blender devs use quite often in the open movie projects to get like data like sorry, I am blanking, my bad. To get, dang, I am really blanking. Custom attributes, that was the word. So custom properties. So if you have, I've been looking through the nodes recently, but if you have, oh, there's already custom properties in here. But if you add in a custom property and then you view this in the shader editor, which I'll just showcase this really quick, attribute view layer, and this can view stuff like, oh, if Eevee bloom is enabled and stuff like that. So if this is just prop, and we take a look, we can see that that's 1, and we edit this, and it changes, which is good for like global parameters. But there are also object-level custom properties, which can be extremely useful. But I'll just go over this really quick because I've talked about this for way too long. But if you want to check if Eevee Bloom is enabled, we'll just copy the full data path, put it in here. Lots of very useful stuff that would be extremely useful to check. So view layer, Bloom is enabled, Bloom is disabled. So all of that data and stuff like the 3D cursor can be accessed. Active camera data that we can't get with the active camera node, like the resolution, the depth of field, the focal length and such, would be very useful. So that's on my wish list. If anyone is a C++ developer that knows a bit about Blender's development, please get in contact with me. But yeah, cool stuff. But yes, the geometry nodes pause. For those of you who don't know, in December, they announced that geometry nodes would be on pause for the next update for like 3 months, they said, in order to work on Eevee next, and I think the viewport compositor, and I think there was one other thing, and I forgot. Grease Pencil version 3. And the weird thing was there never was really a pause. Like, the pause just didn't happen in the next 3 months. Maybe they meant for 4.2, but I'm actually not sure. But, yeah, they said there was going to be a pause, and then there just wasn't really one, which was very interesting. But we'll see if it happens. But I would be okay with it if the other parts got fixed up. Audio waveform previews are now displayed by default. Yes, I'm very excited about that. And apparently, it's a ton faster. Because, well, people don't really use Blender's video sequence editor too much for video editing. But it's very useful if you say animate along to vocals or people talking. So having that viewable and extremely fast is extremely useful, and I'm very happy. Another quality of life change. Also, a little change right here is that these are now arrows instead of the little kind of triangle design. And also, you can double click on a collection in order to select everything inside of it, which is very convenient. I'll be using that quite a bit. And also, bone collections got an update, which I might have a rig that I can demonstrate on. So really quick, again, sorry that this is a very rushed explanation, but I hope it's informative. On Blender's YouTube channel, there's a much better and shorter explanation of all of the features, which I would recommend if you want the very condensed and boiled down version of it. Say 1 second, everyone. Is the correct one? Ah, yes it is. Okay. So, with rigging, let's go and select this rig right here and put these bones into a bone collection. So, there are bone collections, which used to be the weird layering system that was a thing since, well, even, that's been a thing since past the 2.8 days, and it finally got updated, I believe, in Blender 4.0, but now, these are more hierarchical. Hierarchical, if that's how you pronounce it. But now these can be nested, or I think they could be nested in the past, but now the layering is much more apparent and useful. So now organization of rigs is a lot better. I'm sure people will be using this a ton. You could also have custom properties, which this could be like bone, actually. I forget how bone colors work, if you can assign them to that. It's been a while since I've done proper rigging. As we can see with this one, this was a very impromptu rig. I made it in like maybe 30 minutes. But yes, garlic bread. Yes, garlic bread is amazing. I had some recently. But yeah, how to delete several materials from one object? Is it possible to select several materials from one object and delete them with one click? I think if you press F3, there might be an option to clear materials. Let's see, clear materials. Oh, there's removed unused material slots. I'm actually not sure. I would recommend Googling that because I do not have all of the answers when it comes to that. Okay. We are waiting for your Blendini tricks. It'll be many years until we get to Blendini. Again, I've said this in previous live streams, but simulation systems and geometry nodes will be a long time coming, just because we really don't have access to the tools we need. One of them being that the view layer attributes, because right now you just can't get stuff like the gravity, the simulation ranges, or I think that one actually does count. But stuff like the gravity, if you change this, we can't access that in GeoNodes at the moment unless you have a driver, and I do not recommend using drivers. They are not suitable for... They're not stable enough for node setups. At least if you want to copy them and all that stuff. I've had bad experiences with them. But yeah, also telling, oh, which objects have collision on them, which ones don't. Like, there's tons of data that Geometry Nodes just doesn't have access to, especially in this section. And it'll be many, many years. Well, it'll be quite a few years until they get around to that. So, at the moment, like, Blender can do quite a few effects that Houdini does. Quite a few effects that I've done have been directly referencing Houdini projects. And it can do a lot. It's a very good platform. But at the moment, our limits are, well, a for each loop, and then getting data outside of geometry nodes, getting it from other objects and stuff. Because right now, the devs have to manually code in everything. And as we can see with the active camera node, that's a very slow process, where the active camera node will only give you the location, rotation, and scale, and none of the other data that a active camera node would usually have. There were two active camera nodes being developed by two different community developers. One of them had most of that data, but that branch kind of got abandoned for a while, and the other one took off, where it was just the object input. And they were planning later on to add in node like the object info node, but would get the camera info, but they didn't have time to implement that. So, again, my kind of proposal is to make a generalized node that can just access all of the data, like the view layer attribute node, because that can access that data, so that you don't have to manually code in every single thing. It would be quite useful. I don't think there are like huge technical roadblocks around it, especially if the shader editor uses it, but I would have to double check on that. Let's see. Sounds like not that big of a hurdle to fix connections with physics parameters. I think it might be a huge issue, because a lot of these systems are, like, the physics systems are rather old, and in Blender 2.8, a lot of them kind of broke down a little bit with the dependency graph, and I've gone over this in other streams, where if you have a deforming object, it won't update unless the user manually causes a dependency update, which is very weird, and that's been broken for like 4 years. But those are at the ends of their lives, and they'll be replaced by geometry nodes. But that replacement won't be available for a long time. Because the question is, oh, can we set object attributes yet to say, hey, this object does have, has collision enabled and stuff like that? We just don't have access to that, and it'll be a long time before we do. Technically, it may be possible with a few generalized nodes, like setting object data, but I highly doubt that we'll be able to, and I'm not even sure if it's possible for geometry nodes to set object data like that, but we'll see. But yes, anything else that I need to go over? Yes, I would recommend upgrading to Blender 4.1, especially if you're using Blender 4.0, upgrade to 4.1 immediately if you're using geometry nodes, because, again, simulation nodes got a lot less stable in Blender 4.0. I'm trying to find other projects that possibly could showcase other features. Mocap trails, the dragon trail. Yeah, let's look at the dragon trails again. So this is using the aforementioned particle system that I made. And this one will lag because I think this is the souped up version. Oh, yep, it is. I put way too many particles in here, so let me just go and turn off the particle system. See, let's go and just chop that part out. There we go. That's a little bit better. But yeah, this is using the active camera node to make the ribbons face the camera. In this case, you can see that these are a ton of mesh ribbons, high res, which is why it's so laggy. So maybe I can go and tone that down by a lot. This was made to get, Yeah, here we go. Let's tone that down. There we go. That's a little bit better. Maybe the shader editor is struggling as well. But yeah. I'm trying to follow all developments, but not familiar with the old Blender systems. Really nice looking effects. Thank you. Yeah, Blender development, I would recommend just looking up Blender 4.1 changelog, and there is a very... Actually, I can put this in the chat, where this goes over all of the... I might have linked to... Yeah, that links to the geometry node changes. So let me go and put just the 4.1 release notes. Here we go. So that, the second link, there we go. I would recommend looking at that to see all of the changes in Blender 4.1. Let me go and open up another scene because this one is a little dark. And also, if you would like, we can take a little look at the past and look at Blender 2.73, the first version of Blender I used, to see where we came from. I think that might be fun. But let me just double check all of the old ones to see. Oh no, that uses the matrix branch. Ah, here's a fun one. Okay. So, the shortest path node has been sped up by a significant degree, which is good because this system uses the shortest path node. So this was a system I made a while back in Blender 4.1, but it's, you know, been a long time. That just unfolds a mesh. Let's wait for the shaders to load up. There we go. So originally this was made to fold faces accurately, which maybe I can show that off if I can remember where I put it. It should be in a, yeah, it should be labeled correctly. But then I changed it to work on vertices again, and it turned out really well. But it relies on the shortest edge paths node, which got a speed up, and I wonder what else. Oh, another thing to note, the rotate Euler node is being depreciated, which it won't be removed, it'll be versioned, well, it'll be removed, but it'll be versioned out. So if you have this in your node setups, you're still good. It won't be straight up deleted where it breaks your systems, but it will be replaced with the rotation node, which is very similar, but has a few changes like, you know, you don't have the axis angle input, unfortunately. Fun fact about this, I mentioned that it would be very confusing for users for these to just be swapped out with no explanation. So they added the depreciated thing there and a depreciated section in the utilities thing so that people can see, oh, it's going to be depreciated. So that's a very good change that people will appreciate, and it's nice that they listen to the feedback about that. Yeah, so now users who don't see the changelogs will see, oh, that's being depreciated, use the other node, which is very good, a very good UI thing, which is very nice. Okay, so yeah, let's go and take a look at the first version of Blender that we use, because, you know, 4.1, we're getting a ton of new quality of life features and a ton of, well, very needed fixes. I'm just fishing through this to find Blender 2.75. Oh, 7.3, not 7.5. My bad. This came out in 2015, which I think I started using this a few years after it released. I'm not entirely sure. Let's see. So brace yourselves. This will hurt to look at. So this is what we had almost like 8 years ago, I think was when I started using Blender. But this is what we had. No anti-aliasing. I'm not sure if that shows up in the screen, on the stream, but there's no anti-aliasing inside of this window. And also, I may be forgetting this, but apparently the cycles, I forgot how you enable cycles in here because there's no real button for that, which is really funny. This is what we had to deal with. Yeah, the light theme and everything. The modifiers, were very similar to the ones we have now, except, you know, we got that modifier UI update. And also the translate, rotate, scale thing is very funny. It's just very, very funny. But here we can take a look at auto smooth. Where auto smooth? Ah, here's auto smooth. So here, oh, and the angle was set to 180 already. That's very interesting. But yeah, that's very, very funny. The old, wow, these icons. And this was a thing until 2019. Like, that's when 2.8 came out. So this is what we had to deal with until 2019. Here, let's turn on auto smooth just to take a look at it again. Shade smooth. Let's see, there we go. So with shade smooth back in the day, which was just a little while ago. Oh, my hotkeys are not working. There we go. Oh, look at that, wow. So when you would move this, we can see that the shading updates. But now with the new smoothing methods, it's now consistent with deformations, which is really, really, really good. And you can still use the modifier to get the old auto smooth functionality, but the new functionality is better than what we had here. I don't really think I have any files from this era, but yeah. We can see that before we didn't have collections, we just had this layering system. So here, let's go and move this to another layer. How do you know what parts are in what layer? You didn't. You just had to go and be like, oh, let's see, let's click on this object. Oh, it's on layer 1, while the other one is on layer row 2, 4. Okay, let's go to row 2, 4. It was not a good system. I don't know how we survived back then, but we did. And yeah. When did you start using Blender? I think maybe around 2015, 2016? I forget. But I used it on and off until around 2020, and then that's when I focused on learning it so that I could turn it into a career, which went well. Let's see. I browse Dev Talk. I enjoy seeing the discussions of open source software development in general. Yes, it's very good to see what's going on because quite often there will be ideas being thrown around and also feedback that people are giving and seeing how that's handled, and like you can see the updates before they come, and that is very useful to see. And also in some cases, like with the depreciated rotate oiler node, you can give feedback. Just do it in a respectful manner. I've seen people be not so respectful in there, and it does not go well. So make sure you act respectful to the devs when giving feedback. But yes, it's very good seeing the development and seeing what's going to happen, and in some cases, what hiccups are coming along. And also what bugs are happening. Yeah. I don't really know what to do. Like, this was our old shader editor. Because, oh, they kind of had subpanels back then. But kind of weird subpanels. Interesting. I forgot how cycles was enabled, but I'm not really sure if... Oh, and the old sky? This was so weird. Let's try rendering. Yeah, everyone knows that, you know, with a sky texture, you want the horizon color, the zenith color, and the ambient color. Everyone knows you want that. Everyone does. Everyone knows that you want ambient inclusion enabled in the world setting. This stuff is weird. Oh, wait. Direct lighting. Wait, was that... No, that's not running with cycles. Well, anyway, I think I'm going to get out of here because yeah. It's nice seeing, you know, the ancient technology, though. Let's see. Let's go and X out of that. And nope, I just reopened it. Whoopsie. I keep forgetting that Blender 4.1 is now installed on my computer rather than just a build sitting around. Let's go and open up another 4.1 folder. Let me search for 4.1 so that I can see. Nation. Nope, that's the Matrix one. 1 second, everyone, while I go and search through. I'm going to search through my 2023 projects to see what 4.1 projects I was working on in there. Let's see. Oh, okay. So here's one. Speaking of physics systems and the future of geometry nodes, it is planned for geometry nodes to replace the physics systems, as I've said earlier in the stream. Okay, here we go. And this was a test of a rigid body system that I tried creating, and it made me realize how far away we are from that, and also my math skills, because the math is still very janky at best. But, like, in this case, I had to hack around a for each loop, and also, did I need to use substeps on this one? I don't think so. But here, I need to abuse a repeat zone to make a for each instance loop, which the for each loop was mentioned quite heavily in the last Blender conference, which I believe was in November. And it's still planned, but there's no active development on it. There's like a test, I think there's a test version out somewhere, or at least a mock-up, but no active development. But that's one thing that we will probably need to, you know, make some physics systems. And also, again, we need the view layer attributes so that we can see, oh, what's the gravity in the scene, because right now it's not referencing the actual gravity. That is just me putting in add velocity -0.025, which is very funny. Oh, and by the way, this robot is entirely physics-based. And then whenever it's time, the instances get swapped out into the physics object, which is very funny. And I hope that I'll be able to expand upon this in the future, because it would be extremely powerful. But for the time being, it'll be a long time before many physics systems are brought over. I do want to create, let's see if I can get this up here. Let's see, where's the hair simulation system? Hair. When was that? Sorry, everyone. I need to check when I made that hair simulation system. Nope, none there as well. Oh no, wait, that's in sim projects. 1 second, everyone. While I sift through all of my folders. Be sure to organize your folders. I did that recently, but there's still a lot of stuff that needs to be done. Hair, okay. 4.1, hair sim 2.5. Oh, nope, that one's just straight up broken. Sorry, everyone. I'll go and figure this out soon. Hair 2.1. Here we go. Okay. So this was my old hair simulation tests. But we're missing some collision. Like, I'm missing some collision math and also local rotation math in order to make it properly work, which I have some theories on how to make it function, but my skills are just not fully there yet to make fully accurate hair simulation. Which I hope, like, I would like to borrow from some physics papers, but I do not have time to do that quite yet. But it looks funny. But yeah, fun stuff. So one of these days, like, the Geometry Nodes hair system came out probably maybe 2 years ago at this point, maybe over a year and a half ago. Yeah, maybe 2 years at this point. But unfortunately, no new hair simulation systems, just because Geometry Nodes is not ready yet for that. At least to make a super robust system that hundreds of thousands of people will use. Unfortunately. But one of these days, it'll be ready. Also, just the default cube just jamming out. Very funny. But one of these days, it'll be ready. Just not today. Blender has a long history of frustrating people to the point of scaring them away. It has to click after a few tries. Definitely in the 2.8 era, But from quite a few people that I've talked to, they've found Blender 2.8 to be a lot more accessible than the previous versions. Just because, again, right-click select versus left-click, and a lot of other things like the icons on the home screen, or on the in the viewport. I'm just checking which other 4.1 projects I have available. So just that. 4.1. Oh, I could look at the face rolling one. Yeah, that could be cool. Okay, so this is the face rolling technique, which actually I made a... I forgot I made a complete, like, mini breakdown of this. But yeah. Here we can see the face rolling, which I'm not sure if this uses any specific 4.1 tech. I think it only uses the repeat zone, which is in which became a thing in 4.0. So, yeah, I think maybe I could upgrade it. I also made a version of this with the experimental branch of the matrix nodes, which I think they thought... I don't think they were ever planned for 4.0, but they have a branch that is functional, which maybe we'll get that in 4.1. But at the moment, it works pretty much the same. Same speed too, but with both versions. So, yes. I'm not sure. I think this might be an old version actually, but it's functional. So, okay. The 2.8 UI made me want to try Blender out. That's good. It was, like, as we saw in the 2.73 version of Blender, it was not good. We dealt with it, but it was not good, especially with the layers instead of collections. Which in hindsight, having a folder-based system for the layers is a lot better than just having a grid of 16 dots. It wasn't great, and you couldn't even label them. But now with this, like, when you first jump into Blender, you get greeted with, oh, these arrows might be the move tool, and you get these handy-dandy widgets and all that, gizmos and all that. And now that's still being expanded upon in Blender 4.1, where you can just click this to lock the camera. In hindsight, it would be like, oh yeah, I would add that immediately. But no one thought of that until now. Like, just these icons are very useful, especially if you use, like, a tablet. Where it's like, oh, I don't have all the hotkeys present. And so on. Which is something that I've really come around with in Blender. Blender is very hotkey dependent. And it's been trying to get away from that a little bit, especially for the beginner UI parts, like these. And it's better to have icons available, because not many people just straight up don't know the icons, the hotkeys, and don't know where to look them up. Like, imagine just a 16-year-old kid, a 12-year-old kid, booting up Blender for the first time, wanting to make Minecraft animations. Totally not me. But and then just being like, wait, where do I do all of this? How do I move? How do I center in on the camera? How do I move the camera while I'm looking through it? How do I pan and such? And then again, tablet users and all that. All of these are very useful. Hotkeys are still good. They make things very, very fast. But it's good to always have a visual representation of all of that. Which also, I know people weren't the happiest about this new modifier menu, but it is better. It's organized where you can see, oh, this does this does that, this does that. It's all very sectioned off, while the other one is just, here's everything at once. My one little gripe is that all the geometry node stuff will make this, like, super long. Like, it doesn't really feel like they know how to handle the groups too well, like the GeoNode side versus the old side. It definitely feels like this is legacy, and then this is the new side. And maybe they'll all become one. We'll see. But it is better just because this will be expanding, as we've seen. But, yeah. It will be better. It is better currently because, again, you can search. Which is another funny thing in the importance of feedback, because in development, they weren't planning on adding the search button. They were thinking that people would just have to learn that you type or press space to search, making another, essentially a hotkey for finding stuff rather than a visual input. And then the community said, hey, not having a search button is really bad for new users, and then most people just won't see that unless they look at the documentation. Because before, there was just a little bit of text right there that I never noticed until I looked up the documentation. So again, having visual icons is really good. Hotkeys have their place, but the buttons are good. Actually, does lock camera to view have a hotkey? No. Okay. Well, that's good anyway. But yeah, Blender is getting a lot better with each and every update. Even though Blender 4.0 was a bit rocky, we're back. Let's see. The motto "Blender is for everyone" gave away to "Blender is for artists." I don't think they want amateurs showing stuff and saying I did this with Blender because it's hurting the rep. I would very much disagree with that statement. The point of Blender is to be open source and not be gatekept. So if you're a 12-year-old doing Minecraft animations, if you're, I don't know, making a donut and just quit after a week, Blender is for all of us. It's free for a reason. So if Blender's reputation became good because it was open source and people were able to add to it, which means the professionals who are working on it and the kids working in it. It's good. If you're worried about hurting the brand with a ton of young users working on it, or inexperienced users, yeah. Blender will survive even if there's a ton of inexperienced people working on it. There's so many geonodes, it doesn't make sense to explore the menu every time. Yeah, with this, there's the hair nodes, which, why are the hair nodes present on a regular object? And I think this was made in like the old version of maybe 2 years ago at this point. Actually, what the? Well, it was included here, but I feel like there will be another iteration of the organization with all this, because this is just going to keep expanding more and more and more. And I think it'll become very cluttered if it goes along this current track. And also at the moment, like, there are nested groups, but we'll see how that goes. What's the particles simulation system inside of these node groups? Not because it's an asset browser thing. I already have. Oh no, that's my own. My brain. My apologies, everyone. This is stuff inside my asset browser thing. But yeah, if you have a ton of geometry node assets, I can imagine people being like, oh, this is going to be super huge. Which is why, in my case, I just made it this big, because there would be a lot. And I believe not all of them are in their proper place, which could be really bad. Which I need to double check on. Wait. Yeah, no, that's not correct. I'll figure it out. Control plus to open Blender preference. Yeah, but you could click on that. Or that's control comma. Which again, hotkeys can only get you so far. Like, I use F3 for the menu search all the time, and F2 all the time. So they are useful. It's just, yeah. And then, you know, it's in the right-click menu as well. Yep. Okay, I think we're reaching, it's been an hour. I think we're reaching the end of the stream. Any last questions, please ask them now. Yeah. Let's see, bottlenecks lie in the current available tools for physics and geometry nodes. Yeah, like the biggest hiccup I have with geometry nodes so far is the lack of a for each loop and getting data into geometry nodes. I would say number one is getting the data into geometry nodes. Because again, the active camera node made a lot of this stuff possible, but it's the simplest version of an active camera node that you can get, because it only gives you the location, rotation, and scale, not any of the like aspect ratio and all that, which it would be extremely essential due to, again, per camera culling and all that. So having the ability to get all of the data would be extremely useful, and it is possible. With possibly the view layer attributes, like in the shader editor, you can get all of this data without needing the hacky and unstable driver method. And I hope we can get that into geometry nodes, and also object attributes, which for a lot of things could be extremely useful, like telling if an object is, I don't know, a holdout object or something like that. Again, not sure why you would need that, but having access to all of the data is better than it being barred off, because that just means, oh, you want to make this? Sorry, you can't. But yeah. I know it's grim, but the new Sora videos, the new Sora video thoughts, I'm worried. We'll deal with that when we get there. I talked about that before, but it's just the benefits are very small compared to the huge downsides of being able to generate photorealistic video on a whim or have it be fully automated. I don't want to talk about that too much to derail this conversation, but the benefits do not outweigh the horrible things that can happen with it, and stuff we've already seen with previous automated media production, shall we say. But yeah, that's my quick thoughts on that. I think I'll leave you all with one more project made in Blender 4.1, which is very funny. Blender 4.1 just came out and I've been using it for like the past half year, just because I've been using the alphas and betas and pre-alphas. Let's see. Wait a minute. Oh, I kept this. Okay. Okay, this won't... Oh, why did these absolute nodes just get plopped into there? Oh, I think that was because of a bug way back when. Anyway. A while back, I made a portal renderer using geometry nodes. So this is a geometry nodes render engine, and I thought I deleted it because I spent like 4 hours working on it and I ran into a bug. But this makes portals. Yeah. So all the shadows and stuff are just rendered inside of geometry nodes, which I think I can show a little bit of it. It's extremely hacky, but it does kind of work. And then in the shader editor, I just composite all of the layers, like the location, the light shadow, the light distance, normal, the rays. Oh, that's I forget what that does. Oh, that's like the Fresnel. Yeah, that was a weird Blender 4.1 project. Not practical whatsoever, because again, another side thing about geometry nodes, which I would like to see in the future, but I feel like this would be a monumental task, which the Blender devs have talked about, but more in like a, we'll get to that eventually kind of thing, is GPU acceleration for geometry nodes. I don't know how possible that is, but it would be, it would enable like real-time smoke simulation, real-time geometry node rendering engines, maybe real-time baking, but I don't think that, well, that would need a lot of other stuff in order to make it work to that degree. But, you know how some particle systems can handle millions of particles going at once? GPU acceleration would possibly enable something like that, But then again, there are other bottlenecks where it's like, oh, you want 1,000,000 instances? Good luck. Where in that case, you know, Blender just can't handle that. Particle erosion. What's that? Oh, this one. Okay, I'll leave you with this project. When I switch back the OBS scene. Oh wait, I need to get that texture back. 1 second, everyone, while I go and put the texture back on the helmet. I reorganized everything in the past, like, 3 months, so some of the textures got a bit lost. Desktop. Okay, should get this soon. If I remember where I put it. It's more organized, but I forgot where the organization went. Ah, wait, I found it. It was exactly where it was supposed to be. Here we go. Are we back? Yes, we are. Let me get the chat back up because I put that away. There we go. So this project was made... and let me get the audio back online. Oh no, it's still going. Okay, good. This was made in Blender 4.1. It's a bit slow just because there's a lot of particles running, which, again, GPU acceleration could help significantly with this. Or maybe it's the instances rendering that's causing it to severely lag. I'm not sure which one is the bottleneck in this case. But, anyway. Yeah, a lot of fun stuff. Let me reduce the flake amount. As we can see, even here it's lagging just because there's a lot of alpha layers. Let me tone this down by a significant degree so that we can view this in real time. There we go. That's better. So with this one, it's just a matter of the two textures are in sync. The noise is in sync with the shader editor. They're not linked per se, but they are replicated on both so that when the shader side gets eroded away, the particles here appear at the same location. So it gives the illusion that the paint is flaking, even when it doesn't. Which is kind of similar to how they did it in Avengers Infinity War, but they used a lot more particles and a lot better tech. I believe an only mesh-based method, but I'm not sure. Not too sure about that one. But yeah, Blender 4.1. Stability and, you know, just quality of life features. So I would recommend updating, especially if you're in Blender 4.0, because it's just quite a few features that were put into Blender 4.0 in a kind of incomplete state. Subpanels, the simulation zone, have been fixed up and completed. So, oh, also, let's see. They added drag and drop. Yes, that's one thing I forgot. I can't demonstrate this right now because I don't have any available FBXs that I can plop in at the moment, but now you can drag and drop FBXs into your scene, which is very, very convenient coming from someone who uses Unreal a fair bit for work. Unreal has a lot of quirks to it that you can probably tell by my voice that I'm not super enthused about. But it's very powerful. It's just quirky. But yeah, I hated doing the import before. Importing before was a very manual process. But now, I think also bulk importing is a thing. But I'd have to double check that. But quality of life features. If you like them, download Blender 4.1. And I'll be making stuff for Blender 4.1 in the future. Like, I've already made quite a bit, but a lot of it needs just a bit of polish before I put it up on Gumroad. Some of it will be free, some of it will be paid. There's also free stuff already up on Gumroad, like the aforementioned particle system for geometry nodes. That one's still experimental, so please keep that in mind, but it should be good enough for most effects that people want to do with it. So, yes, the future is bright. I know I come from the geometry node side, because that's the most groundbreaking frontier in Blender. And, like, people have made add-ons that do, you know, somewhat similar stuff. Like, there are some physics add-ons, some smoke simulation add-ons, some baking add-ons. Well, no, baking's in a whole nother field that geometry nodes just does not touch. But geometry nodes is accessibility and stability and integration into Blender. So a lot of cool development is happening with it, where it'll be very powerful in the upcoming years. And I'm looking forward to it. But the rest of Blender has also gotten a lot of upgrades, so I'm very happy about that, and that they haven't just abandoned everything for geometry nodes. Because, you know, the shader editor still needs some love. Looking at you, Scene Time node. It got added to the compositor before the shader editor. How does that happen? But it'll get there eventually. They just need time. Alright, thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this little very hastily put together 4.1 overview and a little look into the past at 2.73. But I hope you all enjoyed. I'll see you next time. I don't think there's any... I'll read the chat real quick. Man, thanks for all your teachings about Blender. I've been here for 6 months now and I've started making money through 3D2. I'm very happy. Yeah, 3D is... It's good work. So if you're able to find employment through that, I'm very happy. Or freelance, whichever. Both are valid. I'm happy that you could get that. I'm glad that I can give back to the community. Because before I got into the YouTube part, I would watch a ton of Blender YouTubers. That's where I learned Blender, through YouTube. Which that's, again, one of the huge strengths of Blender, the community. People watch from YouTube, a lot of free content out there, and they learn that, and then they get a career without having to go to college, which is a very good financial decision in some cases. But, yeah, I'm happy about that. Looking forward to a new alpha version, new season of new features. Yeah, I'm looking forward to Blender 4.2 because that's an LTS release. But 4.1, pretty good. It'll keep us going until then. But yeah, cool stuff in the future and cool stuff now. You were making a 3D fractal as well. Yeah, I forget which project that was. Maybe we'll go over that in a future stream. Oh, there's also new color pick icons. Oh, right. So with the... Sorry for the delays in ending the stream, but hey, extra content. Can you complain about that? With the color picker thing, like now this has been updated so that you can actually see the color you selected a lot easier here and here. The color picker now works outside of Windows, outside of the Blender window. So right now I was going to click the end stream button to get its color, but I don't think that would be good. But right now I just clicked the live icon on my browser and it color picked it perfectly, which apparently that is just 100% red. That is actually pretty funny. But yeah, lots of cool stuff. Again, quality of life features, which I'm very excited about. Oh, and changing that one color broke everything? Wait, how'd that break? Oh, there we go. Okay, I broke something. Anyway, that's my cue to leave. Thank you all for watching. I hope you had a good one. I'll see you next time.